Hello, my name is Dan Healy. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Civitas Capital Group. COVID-19 poses an economic challenge for the United States and the world unlike any in history. Spend a few minutes on Google and you will quickly learn that views about what the coming months and years will look like vary widely from expert to expert and industry to industry. I don't have a working crystal ball, so I'll refrain from making too many bold predictions. Instead, I'm going to focus on how Civitas Capital is thinking about U.S. commercial real estate in the context of a recession and recovery cycle. Starting with the big picture, the first thing I'll note is that the U.S. remains the go-to market for investors in a flight to quality. In public markets, we see this with Treasury bills, where massive investor demand has resulted in record low yields. The same is true in private real estate. Investors who need to allocate capital to real estate typically overweight the U.S. when times are tough. We are seeing this with the firm's clients, especially those outside the United States. And even before COVID-19, there was already roughly $1 trillion committed to private real estate funds targeting U.S. properties. So what do we make of all this? In my view, the dislocation caused by COVID-19 will surely create opportunities to acquire distressed assets at temporarily low prices. However, the degree of distress will vary widely by property type. Hotels and retail centers are in the most difficult position by far, while data centers and some industrial properties may actually benefit from the COVID crisis as the trend toward e-commerce accelerates and more office work is done remotely. With this context, we can walk through a three-stage model that I find useful for thinking about approaching a downturn: survive, reset, and thrive. Overall, the U.S. commercial real estate market is currently in the survive stage. Right now, lenders are providing generous forbearance terms to struggling property owners, especially in the hotel and retail sectors, essentially hitting the pause button. Regulators are encouraging this because, like the banks, they would rather avoid a wave of foreclosures. We expect this stage to last roughly 6 months. In this period, we anticipate low transaction volume because owners and lenders are waiting to understand the pace of recovery and hoping that asset values recover materially in the short term as the economy reopens. The second stage is the reset. This stage will begin when the new normal is clearer. As owners and lenders can forecast property cash flows more accurately, values will reset. In this stage, regulators will begin to force banks to resolve troubled loans, which will result in increased transaction volume as assets are repriced. The timing, duration, and severity of the repricing will vary by property type. The reset stage is where the bulk of distressed acquisition opportunities will become available. It will be interesting to see what the volume of such transactions turns out to be, given the huge amount of capital waiting for them. But as a niche player, Civitas will definitely be ready. The third stage is to thrive. In this stage, the repricing of assets is largely complete and a return to growth begins. After the recession caused by the global financial crisis, the subsequent expansion lasted almost a decade before being cut short by COVID-19. This time, there's talk of a V-shaped or U-shaped recovery, implying a faster growth rate. I am a little bit more conservative. In general, I expect markets with solid and diverse underlying fundamentals, such as our hometown of Dallas, to recover more quickly than others. But having said that, the loss of over 20 million jobs will not be reversed overnight. What's more, the pandemic has introduced variables that we've never seen before. One example is that health concerns may create a strong disincentive for Americans to use public transportation. This has negative implications for previously strong markets like New York City and San Francisco in the short term, and possibly beyond. It's impossible today to know how the interplay of all these variables will shape the recovery. In our opinion, the only certainty is that there will be a recovery. At Civitas, we are believers in the fundamental, long-term strength and prospects of the United States. So our job is unchanged. We dig deeper to find compelling, niche opportunities that others miss.